We just finished a national election in this country, America, and the word I would use to characterize it would be bitter. It was bitter within the two major parties, it was bitter between the two major parties, and it was especially bitter between the two candidates of the major parties. By the end of the nearly 2-year-long campaign, after 2 years of bitterness and rancor, most citizens were not in a voting mood. Most would have preferred if we could have taken both candidates out to a meadow in the early morning quiet and placed them before a firing squad so we could start over, try to find a better job of it. The certain feeling was, how could we possibly do worse? We voted instead, and if it had been bitter and acrimonious before, it swiftly got much worse. One candidate won the most popular votes, and the other, by account of electoral college ballots, won the election. And people wanted to know, as they periodically do, what the fuck is this electoral college? Whose bright idea was this? How can you get the highest number of votes and lose? What kind of democracy is that? The candidate, who claimed all along that the election would be rigged, he won. So he said, of course, that it wasn't rigged. He won it fair and square. His opponent's supporters disagreed with that, and there were protest rallies all over the nation. They are still going on, even though those people have been told that they have a right to voice their opinions, but nothing will change the outcome of the election. The victorious candidate has had some rallies too. His slogan in the campaign was, "Make America Great Again." I saw a picture taken at one of his rallies. Someone had crudely spray-painted a sign, "Make America White Again." You can imagine the reaction that got, cries of "Down with white supremacy." The winning candidate is a white man, and it is true that white males have dominated in the formation of this country from its inception, for better or worse. And a white man won this election, and a white man may win again. But my strong sense of things is that this country is no longer in the firm grip of white males. It will take time, probably painful, but white males are going to have to share this country, and if they're smart, a big if, they will do so willingly, graciously, and they might be allowed to stick around. If they resist or get snotty about it, I think they will be disinherited, rudely swept aside. I was reading a book written by a comedian. In it, he recounted doing a night at the Laugh Factory. The MC was Carlos Mencia, and he introduced the comic by saying, "Okay, this next comedian is a white guy, but," over the rising boos, "give him a chance, motherfuckers." I think that expresses the precise, precarious position of the white man in this emerging America. As I was reading that comedian's book, I cranked him up on the internet to catch his act, and while I was doing that I scanned a list of other related choices I could make. And lo and behold, there was a performance in 1989 by Andrew Dice Clay entitled "The Diceman Cometh." I remembered him, and I had to see if he had been as dicey as I recalled. He certainly was. Clay, whose name is Silverman, created this character as part of his act, and he turned it into the entire performance. The Dice Man, all in black leather and rhinestones, was a Freudian id, there to either fuck pussy or get a blowjob. Either was acceptable, but nothing else, unless it was being waited on, hand and foot and cock, of course. Everything centered around his cock. The audience, more male, but a lot of women, all young, loved this shit, just adored it. They knew the exact words to many of his punchlines, like his crudely twisted Mother Goose rhymes, and they'd gleefully shout them out. The Dice Man called out all the fags and ethnics, insisting, along with total audience approval, "If you can't speak the language, hey, get the fuck out." I don't know if the audience thought he was kidding or not, that this was just a put-on. It sure seemed authentic for everyone, and I thought he meant every word of it. And I was watching him go off on a bitch in the front row, offering to take her up the ass, a ride she'd never forget, when it hit me and I said, "Oh my God, we just elected this guy president." It really was too perfect. It was as if the Diceman had survived in a time capsule for 27 years and come out unrepentant, unexpurgated, in full cry, and people, some, not all, heard this shtick and found it, I don't know, weirdly refreshing, horrifying, but honest in some twisted way, and now the Diceman was the President-elect of the United States. And I knew how he'd begin his inaugural speech. Hey, fuck you, fuck all of yous. And I think the crowd would cheer. They'd give him a standing ovation. To bring this full circle, after I'd written this, I saw an interview with Clay on the internet. I think he has a cooking show on some channel, and they talked about that for a while, and then the interviewer asked him what he thought about Donald Trump. He'd been on Celebrity Apprentice, so he knew him, and when he was asked, when he heard that Trump had been elected president, he shouted, "Hey, they just elected me!"